Okay. And what are some of your duties?
Investigating bites, investigating duty of care regarding animal welfare.
Okay. And do you have any special training or experience to be able to perform these duties?
Multiple years providing animal welfare service in the animal welfare field and law enforcement under Detroit Animal Care and Control. Going on 6 years.
Okay, great. Are you familiar with two dogs by the name of Diego and Vera?
Yes.
And how do you know these dogs?
Multiple activities, including the 2 bite incidents on January 15th and February 16th of 2020.
Okay. And how were you notified of either of the bite incidents?
The January 15th incident was officers were dispatched to the location, and they were called upon the scene. I processed the impounding information of the dog, did the investigation on the bite. It was not deemed necessary to do a dangerous investigation at that time. It was an isolated incident, but it was reported that 2 dogs were loose, as we now know as Diego and Vera, and one was identified as attacking. And
Just Judge, for purpose of objection, this is hearsay. He's relaying as what is true, is what he's discovered from reports from other animal control officers. Those officers not here to testify. Therefore, this is just, it's blatant hearsay. I don't think he can testify to this.
Officers can rely on other officers when they're doing an investigation. And he said that he was processing the scene and doing an investigation of this dog bite, and that is what he's talking about.
And Judge, I don't object. I don't think it's hearsay to say he did the investigation or the conclusion, but the facts which lead up to that, they need a witness from those officers to put that testimony in evidence.
That's correct. He's speaking on information that didn't occur during the report, and he was witness it, then that officer needs to.
Yes, thank you, Judge.
And before we move on, one second, investigator clerk, we're going off the record. Okay, we're back on the record. We had a brief sidebar regarding defense behavior. Defendant behavior, I should say, not counsel.
Okay, investigator, I'm gonna slow you down a little bit. So you said you processed the scene. What does that mean?
that means the aftermath is regarding getting statements, looking at the information that the officers documented, the sign over where the owner did sign over the 1 dog in the instance of January 15th. She signed over the dog for quarantine for the bite.
Okay, and only 1 dog was signed over for quarantine?
Yes, 1 did the biting. It was for our rabies protocol, a 10-day quarantine. 1 dog, admittedly by the victim owner, said it was the 1 dog that he witnessed get a hold of his dog.
Okay, and do you know which dog that was?
The one has been described as black, but she's actually a dark brown brindle. I can understand why, in the night she can look black. But Vera, the female, that's who he identified as the one that bit his dog and killed his dog, and that's the one that Yanni Jones signed over for the 10-day quarantine.
Okay, so Vera, the black dog or the brown dog, was quarantined at animal control for 10 days?
Yes.
Okay, what happened to Diego? Is Diego quarantined?
Diego was not quarantined for the 15th, January 15th, 2020, because he was not identified as doing the biting.
Okay, so was Diego allowed to stay on the property then?
Yes, the officers only confiscated the dog Vera that was identified as doing the biting.
Okay, and is that typical procedure to do that?
Yes, because the procedure is precaution for rabies quarantine. So the one that bit is the one that went into the quarantine.
Okay. And then this investigation was handled as a dog bite, not a dog death?
Yes, it was handled as a dog bite.
Why was it handled that way?
Well, at the time, the procedure, we were still pretty new in it. And I was ironing out the details of the dangerous dog. And at that time, our only means of holding a dog was for quarantine.
I see, okay.
That I was fully aware of all the details.
Okay.
So holding on to her dog as I ironed out the details, I looked at it as an isolated incident, and she was cited for the dog being loose. She was given multiple citations by myself and the officer that was on the scene. I could not write the citation for loose dog, so I wrote it on licensing, and that the neighbors had previously and were willing to witness upon the dog being a nuisance regarding its constant barking.
Okay, so you were on scene, you responded to the property on the day of this incident?
No, that was actually on a PM shift. What we call a PM shift, it's a shift that goes into the PM hours up until 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
So I was aware of it the next morning and followed up.
I see, is that why you couldn't write a loose dog citation?
The officer on scene did write a loose dog citation. So no, I didn't. It was double jeopardy for me to write it again. So I just wrote for the other violations that you actually can do after the fact.
Okay. And so did you speak to Miss Jones personally regarding this incident?
No, I did not.
Okay. When did you write these citations? You did not speak to her then?
Citations for the 15th on the 24th of January.
And did you personally go to her house then?
Yes.
Okay. And did you talk about this incident, the biting incident with her?
I was unable to make contact, so I posted the citations at the location.
Oh, okay, I see. And then back to Vera being quarantined. She was released after the quarantine period?
Yes.
And is the dog quarantined only to see for rabies or also to see their behavior?
At that time, just for the rabies.
Okay, that was your procedure at the time to only look for rabies?
I believe at that time a dangerous could have been conducted, but I used discretion and just wrote the citations and allowed her to get her dog back after the quarantine time was up.
Okay. Have the procedures since changed since January?
Oh, I cannot verify when exactly the dangerous ordinance went in, but to my best recollection, I would say it was fairly new and it was going into effect, and no officer at that time had processed any of the dangerous dog investigation.
Okay. If you could tell me about the second incident you had with Vera and Diego. And when did that happen?
That incident was February 2nd, 2020. I received a call about 7:15 a.m. on a Saturday. It was actually off, but through the meetings with me talking to the surrounding residents and receiving complaints, they had my information. So they called both me and the police, and I arrived on scene to make sure that sometimes the officers leave it to the investigator's discretion later on whether we're going to impound the dogs or not. So I wanted to make sure that these dogs were impounded for this one and make sure that a dangerous dog investigation would be conducted from start.
Okay. And did you go to the property on the day of the incident, of the biting incident?
Yes,
Okay. Were you able to see the dog that was bit and later killed?
I took images because I did not see a dog. There was actually a vehicle pulling off from the driveway when I got there, and the photograph indicated that there was a large amount of blood in the snow in the middle of the backyard, where one of the witnesses told me that the dogs were playing tug of war. The two dogs, Vera and Diego, were playing tug of war with the deceased dog. No, there was no dog on the scene when I got there.
Okay. Were Diego and Vera still on the scene, or were they left the property at that point?
They were in the house, and we informed Miss Jones that due to the bite incident, at that time, it was said that, well, it was actually asked of her, would she be willing to surrender her dogs to animal control due to the bite, and she willingly surrendered them to us.
Okay, so she.
For the quarantine at the time, but I also relayed to her that this incident requires a dangerous dog investigation, and the release may be pending that determination.
Okay.
I have a question. We're referring right now, or he's referring to February 2nd incident?
Correct.
Okay. Just to make sure.
On this day, you actually spoke to Miss Jones?
Yes.
Okay.
Me and the officers. I didn't mention an officer control vehicle showed up as well, and we were both on scene. I was there to investigate. They were there to confiscate.
Okay, I see. And when you spoke to Miss Jones, did she say that she's the owner of these dogs?
Yes.
Is
They're
that...
licensed. They're licensed under her name. She did get them licensed. She had to get it licensed with the pickup of the last quarantine. So she licensed them in her name.
Okay. Were both dogs licensed or only Vera?
No, both dogs were licensed. The license were expired by the. No. Correction. Actually, going back to other activities where she received citations for no license, going back to 2019, she received her City of Detroit dog license for both dogs. So during the time of the bite, both January, the January bite, she already had them both licensed. By the time of the February bite, they had just expired.
Okay. But she, on these licenses, was the registered owner of these two dogs in question.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see Miss Jones on the virtual courtroom?
Let me look. Have to make adjustments. No. I mean, do I see her now? No, her view is not available. But could I identify her by her? Could I recognize her? Yes, I see her now. Yes, I'm familiar with Miss Yanni Jones.
Okay, so do you recognize this other person that's in the virtual courtroom as the person that you spoke to on the day in question and that was the registered owner of Diego and Vera?
Yes.
Can you please describe something that she's wearing?
What she's wearing now?
Correct.
White V-neck T-shirt.
Thank you. May the record reflect the defendant's been identified? Thank you. So after you talked to Miss Jones and told her about the process and what is going on, she released both of her dogs to you?
Yes.
And what does it mean to release your dog? Is this a temporary thing or a permanent thing?
Well, it's explained, the procedure is explained that it's pinned with that case, with the February 2nd, it was explained that due to the nature that it will be an investigation and the release will be pending the outcome of the determination.
Okay, so would you hold the dogs at least 10 days to determine if they had rabies?
That's with the rabies, but knowing the procedure of the dangerous dog, it would be completed when the investigation, including witness statements, photos, whatever's needed. We try to get it done within that 10-day period so we can let them know, but we also let them know as a precaution that it will be pending the determination.
Okay, and this time in February, you were doing a dangerous dog determination, correct?
Yes, recommendation.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And why did you choose to do the dangerous dog recommendation this time?
Well, with such a brief time in between the bite actually being fatal, I felt it was excessive. And with the documented frequency of our visits to the location and the multiple citations, I felt like there needed to be some accountability.
Yes. Yep. So this time you also took both dogs, correct?
Yes.
And why did you take both dogs this time?
Due to the witness statement, both dogs were loose, including video, and it was said that both dogs bit. And they were loose. There was nothing to argue that they did not attack because they were loose, and Miss Yanni Jones did not deny that they were not loose.
Okay. And when you held the dogs, when you held the dogs at animal control, do you look if they are demonstrating any behavior, any vicious behavior? I mean?
Well, beforehand, that's more of a thing where are we going to adopt the dogs out, whether we evaluate, not in this case, but before there was the dangerous thing, we pretty much go with the details. Yes, it's something that comes up, but it really doesn't sway the details of what occurred on the incident.
Do you know?
It's pretty much the evidence of the incident. Okay.
Okay. So when you're holding the dogs, you're not also evaluating their behavior?
With a destruction order, yes, we do, but it's pretty much that's kind of solidifies it, but it doesn't really go into the recommendation on my part.
Okay. And do you know if either dog has shown any dangerous, vicious behavior while they've been held at animal control?
Well, they've been held because the determination upheld the recommendation. But yes, there has been incidents. They are documented. Vera in particular has on more than one occasion. I can get the documentation if you'd like. I don't have it with me, but I had to note it myself as a secondary bite while she's in our care that she did bite another dog.
Peter, if you can just hold your testimony for a
Investigator
second.
Clark, there's an objection.
Investigator Clark, the objection is based on hearsay. Investigator Clark is gleaning information from other reports of investigators. Now he's trying to testify to statements that are being used for their truth. These are assertions of their plain hearsay. If those officers who witnessed anything that happened in the pound, unless he independently witnessed it, then he can testify to. Other than that, it's hearsay, not asked to be stricken and not permitted.
I believe he is relying on information done in reports from other officers, which would be a business record that he's relying on the behavior of the dogs that are being held. So it would be an exception to hearsay.
We don't have a business record present, though.
That's where he learns the information, what's from these reports.
Yeah, Judge.
Actually, I can, if you.
1 second.
He can get to a conclusion based upon his reports and testify to whatever the outcome is, but the actual content of those reports, that would be actually hearsay. It's not just a business record. We didn't lay any foundation for that yet. And I don't think that's permitted to come in, at least at this point, Judge.
Not the conclusion, correct, the conclusion of it, but he can't testify to someone else's report and the contents of it, and go through what some other officer does, without presenting some type of business record.
And I will note, Judge, this is, well, it's part of a criminal case in this matter. I believe this actual motion itself may be civil rules of procedure, first time broaching these things, but there may be a confrontation issue as well. Even if there's an exception to hearsay, my client would have a Sixth Amendment right to confront the witnesses against her. Of course, that's under criminal standards, Judge, but this case has been called under a criminal matter.
So, what was it that you were trying to obtain from Investigator Clark?
If Vera has had any instances of being aggressive while in holding.
And Investigator Clark, can you speak to your knowledge whether or not the dog Vera has had any incidents while under animal control, any violent or whatever the terminology would be?
It is protocol for rabies isolation whenever a dog bites another dog. It's reported to me, so it is taken seriously. It's not anything that's hearsay. They report it to me because they have to. There are injuries involved.
Investigator, mixing up the terminology hearsay for something that people commonly say versus what rules of evidence are.
Yeah.
My question to you was just if you know your own information and knowledge through your investigation that Vera has had any incidents at the animal control.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's my reception. You got low at the end. I didn't hear the end clearly.
Feel free to answer the question.
Thank you, Judge. Investigator, do you personally know if Vera has attacked any dogs while she's being held at animal control from February until now?
I myself did not witness it, but I was in charge of collecting the information and documenting it.
Okay, what information did you collect and document?
Again, Judge, I have to object. That's calling for whatever information's in those reports. They're trying to use these statements to prove the truth of the matter asserted in those statements, and that's still hearsay.
I'm going to saying. Investigator Clark,
Yes,
yes or no? Do you have any information as to whether that dog Vera had any incidents while in animal control?
yes.
Okay.
And what is that information?
Information of injury to the other dog. Statement from the person walking the dog. What happened is the dogs got in too close confines.
Here we go. We're broaching right back into it. I think his first part of his answer, that's admissible, but he's starting to go back down the hearsay road.
I'll move on first.
Okay. We've established, or I understand that there was an incident that happened in animal control and that information was obtained from a witness who was walking a dog, or someone at animal control who was walking a dog.
Okay, thank you, Judge, that's what I understand also. And do you know the present condition of Diego?
Yes, I have the medical records. I'm not a vet, so I have to read the actual statement. It's actually bone. It's diagnosed as bone cancer.
Okay, I'm gonna slow you down a bit. So the documents you were looking at, is that Diego's medical history?
Yes.
Case document?
A lot of documents, no leash. Bear with me. As much documentation as I could. Got it in front of me.
Well, do you know, are medical histories typically taken for dogs that are being held at animal control?
Well, we do have the vet capability to diagnose, including x-rays, and that's what was done because he was favoring his left leg. And upon the x-ray, the vet diagnosed it as bone cancer. I don't have it in front of me. Oh, here we go. Sorry. I'm trying to car into an office. Favoring, this was on September 4th, favoring left rear leg, atrophy, stifle is thickened, x-ray VD, pelvis stifle, lytic, this is vet terms, lesion to left distal femur, osteosarcoma, bone cancer. I did the best I could with that.
Thank you, investigator. Okay, so according to the medical records, and are these medical records something that's routinely created if a dog is sick that's being held at animal control?
Yeah.
Okay, and are they routinely held by your office, by animal control?
I'm sorry, you said held at our office?
These records, do you usually keep possession of these medical records?
They're in our system and we can pull them out. Yes, we keep them in our system.
Okay, so from reading these records, Diego was diagnosed with bone cancer September 4th, 2020.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, and do you know if Miss Jones was notified of this diagnosis?
That I do not.
Okay. Do you know if this diagnosis is treatable?
That I do not.
I do move to, move into evidence people's proposed exhibit 2, their medical records.
Can I just see?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
Oh, this is,
Before it really, can you lay the foundation and who produced it and was produced?
yes.
Judge, if it helps, we won't object to the admission.
Okay, a minute.
All right, thank you, Judge. And investigator, do you know the present condition of Diego?
This is the last diagnosis that I heard of.
Okay, so you don't know if he's in pain or anything as of today?
Well, the diagnosis, it does say caprofen. I left off at the bone cancer. It says prognosis. It's just the same thing I was reading from, but I stopped at the osteosarcoma, and then parentheses it says bone cancer. It goes on to say prognosis stifles, lytic, carpro. I'm sorry.
That's good, thank you, investigator.
It says they're getting it says they're administering painkillers, so there must be some pain. That's what it ended up saying.
Okay, thank you. And to go back to the February incident when you were talking to Miss Jones, did she make any statements to you regarding the dogs?
It was said that Diego didn't do anything.
This is what Miss Jones said?
Yes.
Did she say anything regarding Vera?
No.
Okay. And she didn't make any other statements?
There was arguments going on between the neighboring people, the complainants, and some of the witnesses. There was some arguing going on. Police had to intervene. A couple of the neighboring residents involved came around the corner. It got a little chaotic, so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And both Diego and Vera are presently at Animal Control, correct?
Yes.
And are you familiar with how the amount is charged for boarding dogs at Animal Control?
I would have to look it up.
Okay, if you aren't familiar, that's fine.
No.
So did you make a dangerous dog recommendation of these animals?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have the recommendation with you? I can present it to the camera, but if you have it. Dated February 18th.
No, I got a lot of sun here. Let me try to make an adjustment.
That's okay, thank you. Okay, so did you write this document?
Yes.
Okay. And this dangerous dog recommendation, why did you write this document?
Because a recommendation had to be made. It's time sensitive, and after collecting all of the evidence from witnesses and from victim dog owners, I could make a recommendation based on the evidence.
And who are you making the recommendation to?
To the administrator, who's the director.
And is that how the process goes, that you make a recommendation to the director?
Yes.
And looking at this recommendation, are you familiar with this document?
Yes,
And did you make this recommendation based on the 2 previous dog bites?
yes, with the frequency, yes, and the, with the circumstances, the excessive circumstances of both incidents of dogs getting loose and there being a fatal bite involved. Yes, I felt it was necessary, and it falls within the ordinance.
Right. And did you make the recommendation for both Diego and Vera?
Yes,
And did you sign this document?
yes,
Is that your signature that appears on the bottom?
yes.
And what is the date of this document?
February 18th.
People move to admit people's proposed exhibit 3.
Your Honor, just for, it became clear to me that this is a criminal case that was called, this would be akin to a police report. Police reports are not admissible in criminal cases, as they're inherently unreliable because they're made in furtherance of the actual criminal case. I think his testimony was quite clear and it's sufficient, but I just don't think the document can be admitted just on a legal objection basis ground.
I would disagree with this. This was not done as a police report fashion. This was done in the dangerous dog determination, and that's why we're in front of the court today for the dangerous dog order to euthanize the dog. This was part of their investigation to move it forward to get the determination from the director. And how you get the determination from the director is a recommendation from the investigator. So it leads in the process.
I'm actually gonna allow it, and I understand your objection completely, as police reports are not allowed to be admitted, but I do see it as a report or as a recommendation, and more of a business record to be admitted versus as you refer to Attorney White as a police report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judge. Investigator Clark, after you made your recommendation, what happened from there regarding the dangerous dog investigation?
Informed Miss Yanni Jones by telephone, when she was out of town, that a recommendation was made and it was followed up by a determination by the administrator that the dogs were determined to be dangerous, and she was given the instruction of how to proceed, and if she was not to proceed within the 10 days, that the recommendation would stand. Proceed with either appealing or submitting to the ruling.
Okay, I'm gonna slow you down a little bit. Were the dogs determined dangerous just based on your recommendation?
My apologies, could you repeat that?
Yes. Were the dogs determined dangerous based on your recommendation? Like, was there anything else?
Yeah, yes.
Does the director have to deem them dangerous?
He makes the determination based on my recommendation.
Okay. And do you know if that determination was made in this case?
Yes.
And do you know who made that determination?
The director of animal care and control, a Mark Comp.
Okay. And do you know if that determination was made on March 3rd, 2020?
2020. Yes.
Okay. And was that determination made for both Diego and Vera?
Yes.
And is this determination something that is typically done in the course of your business?
Well, in terms of a dangerous investigation, yes,
Okay. And does animal control keep these records that the dogs were determined dangerous?
yes,
I would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 4, the dangerous dog designation for Vera, and proposed exhibit 5 for Diego.
Judge, given the light of the court's previous ruling on my objection earlier, based upon that, we wouldn't object further.
Thank you. Okay, and now investigator, going back to what you were saying earlier, after the dangerous dog determination was made, then you informed Ms. Jones about it?
yes.
And how did you inform her?
By telephone to inform her that I was in the process of delivering the determination letter to her.
Okay, and you actually spoke with her on the phone, or did you leave a voicemail?
I spoke with her.
Okay, so she was aware of this determination.
Yes,
Okay, and did you mail her the determination too?
yes,
Was that done by regular mail or certified mail?
both.
And was it posted on her door?
Yes,
This would be the Normandy address, correct?
yes,
After you made Ms. Jones aware by telephone, mail, certified and uncertified, and posting it on her door, did you get any response from Ms. Jones?
no,
And how long does the dog owner have to respond to this?
10 days,
And she did not respond in 10 days.
no,
But she did eventually appeal this, right?
yes.
And do you recall when it was?
That was July 16th.
So this was, you made the determination in March and she did not appeal till July.
Correct.
So it was an untimely appeal.
I'm sorry?
Was the appeal timely that she made?
No, You did
Since she go ahead.
you did say timely, right?
Yes. Her
Yeah.
appeal or is untimely?
Yeah. I mean, you said untimely. So yes, it was untimely.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Since she did not appeal in the 10-day window, what happens from there?
The determination stands and it becomes a court matter.
Okay. So presently, Diego and Vera are dangerous dogs?
Yes.
Thank you, investigator. No further questions.
I'm going to start where the prosecutor left off, Investigator Clark. This notice was served on March 3rd of 2020, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, when I say this notice, I mean the dangerous dog designation. That was sent, posted, and a phone call was made on or about March 3rd, 2020, isn't that right?
Yes.
And under the ordinance, a person gets 10 days to respond to contest that, isn't that right?
Right.
And then thereafter, if the animal control department wants to uphold the dangerous dog determination and have a dog destroyed, they must then apply to the 36th District Court. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
So let's start with April of 2020. Did anybody from your department make any request of the 36th District Court to destroy either or both of these animals?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay, how about May of 2020? Would you be aware if anybody made an application to the 36th District Court to destroy these animals in May?
That I'm not aware of.
How about June 2020?
I'm not aware.
How about July of 2020?
Not aware.
Okay, but then in July, you did receive an appeal from my client, Ms. Jones, to contest this matter, isn't that right?
Correct.
And if her response was so untimely, why didn't your department move for an order to destroy these dogs, closer to the 10-day limit? I guess in April, May, June, or even early July.
That I can't answer.
Okay. Now, we all know in March of 2020, we had the COVID outbreak. I'm sure you're aware of that, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Was your department open for people to simply walk in and file these orders to contest, or these requests to contest?
Walk in? No.
Yeah, and actually on the notice, though, it states a person can walk in to handle this, isn't that right? Let me be clear.
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware if that's what it says. I imagine with normal business case, it would be okay to say something like that. But I don't know if there was any structure change regarding that with the COVID.
Yeah, of course, and that's what I'm getting at, sir. So basically, because COVID changed the normal operating procedures of your department as of March of 2020, right?
Yes.
And so somebody may not be able to even file that appeal within 10 days as required. It may have been impossible, right?
No, not impossible. There can be communication.
Okay. I think I've hit that point enough. I'll move on. Let's see. There was an incident. I'm sorry. You said when you would respond to the scene, the police were on the scene, and there was a lot of, I think, chaotic or commotion is how you described it, at Ms. Jones' house. Is that correct?
Well, actually from house to house. Well, there is an alley which has been spoke of how the dogs were getting out. This separates the house from Normandy to Linwood, and there was arguments from Yanni Jones, who stood on her porch, and the witnesses and victim dog owners at the alley fenceway.
Okay, so in your estimation at that point, none of these other people were so scared they were staying in their house and locking their doors because these dogs may get out, right?
There was nothing to be afraid of at the time the police were on the scene and the dogs were contained. So, no.
Okay. Now, on one of these reports, I believe it was the January 15, 2020. Let me double check my notes here. The dog, Jacob. Are you aware which incident that was, Jacob, the dog?
Yeah, that's the Davis household.
Okay.
The
And was
previous
Jacob
dog.
on?
Go
Okay,
ahead, sir.
Oh, no, was Jacob on his own property when he was attacked in that case?
As the victim owner reported, yes.
Okay, now, and the second dog from the second incident, I believe her name was it Lucky?
Yes.
And was Lucky on Lucky's own property when this dog fight occurred during her incident, or his incident?
Yes.
That's what your investigation revealed?
With the occurrence, yes.
Okay.
From the initiation of the incident, yes.
Okay. Now, one final thing. Let me just double check my notes here, Judge. Oh, one thing about the commotion at Ms. Jones's house, she was standing on her porch, you testified to. Is her porch in the front yard?
Yes.
In front of her house?
Yes.
And the complaining witnesses in this case actually live behind her, isn't that right?
Yes.
So those complaining witnesses were somehow yelling
Yes.
through a house?
Yes.
Take me through it. How does that happen?
The diagonal angle, they
Okay.
came up to the alley fence to observe what was going on, and they had a diagonal view to us. I looked over my shoulder and could see the individuals, and I requested that they go back in their houses.
Okay, understandable, understandable. I don't envy your position there. Just moving along, you've had quite a history with Miss Jones and these dogs, correct?
Yes.
And during that history, those dogs were actually kept on chains for quite a while, isn't that right?
Well, when going back over the incidents, the first issue was that her neighbor on Normandy was the first complainant. And those issues were that the dogs were on her property. And and there was an incident. This is going back. Go ahead, sir.
What I'm asking is, didn't you as an investigator have communication with Miss Jones that she cannot keep those dogs on a chain? Isn't that right?
Objection.
Yeah.
This line of questioning is not relevant to if these dogs were determined to be dangerous dogs or not.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm done, go ahead.
I think it's very relevant, Judge, if the owner is sitting here trying to contain these dogs so nothing occurs and everybody's taking the stand and testifying how not horrible she is, but careless or negligent or reckless that she is, I think her mitigation, and if the animal control department had anything to do with this, I think it's completely relevant, not only to credibility, but I think it does go to the dangerous dog aspect.
But they even questioned the dogs were not on the tether, so it is not relevant.
That's the point, Judge, they weren't on the tether.
Because it goes to the history of the 2 dogs that our investigator Clark has with them, so I'm gonna allow it.
And I'm trying to keep it quick, Judge.
Oh, I get it, but no, I'm gonna allow it. I'm pretty familiar with what's going on here, so I get it, I'm gonna allow it.
All right, Mr. Clark, at any point in time, did you advise Miss Jones that she could not keep any dogs on a chain?
Yes, the chains are illegal. Wire-coated tethers is what is expressed when a dog owner is told that the chains are illegal. The chains are illegal because the chains borderline cruelty.
No, okay, and I'm not faulting you for that, Mr. Clark, or Investigator Clark. I understand what the ordinance states. You're doing your job. I'm not faulting you. I'm just establishing the point that mitigation measures were trying to be made. Do you know if she tried to tether and these dogs ate through that and still got out? If you're aware.
Well, I would have to go by Miss Yanni Jones' statement. And she told me once she was written the citations for the chains that she didn't tie them up again.
Okay, so she was trying to follow well, you can't testify her intent. I'll move on. One thing in People's Exhibit 2 that you testified to, it's the medical records. Do you still have that in front of you, sir?
Yeah, pretty close. Let me,
Diego's medical history is the title of the document.
Yep, I have it.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you see the entry February 16th of 2020? Do you see that entry there?
February 16th of 20. No, this is what I'm holding is the September 4th, 2020 diagnosis of the bone cancer. No, I don't have the medical of the date that you're referring to.
Okay. Are you able to see if I held this document up to the camera? This is the exhibit that was admitted, so.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I could just step in the camera.
Sure.
I'm just gonna hold this up. See if you can read it. I don't know if you'll be able to make it out.
Okay. Let me blow your, let me see if
Okay,
I
go
can
ahead, yeah. I know it's not easy.
have, Nope, it won't. Let me put my glasses on. Sorry.
Well,
See if I can.
actually, oh yeah, go ahead and try that. Go ahead and try that.
It says in field behavior, friendly, affiliative during intake, behavioral friendly, affiliative. It has its weight.
Okay. No,
It
that's the
has,
point I was trying. No, that's great. You read the part. So, according to the official records of the Animal Control Department, these dogs, upon intake, not only in the field but on intake, were friendly and affiliative, right?
Objection, there was misstating what this document is. You said dogs, this is only Diego.
I'm sorry. With respect to Diego. And that's.
We'll handle that.
I mean, is that the animal control's position then? They were friendly, I'm sorry, Diego was friendly and affiliative, both
Yes.
in the field and upon intake. Okay. Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Can you read them?
Yes, please. Okay, Investigator Clark, I have a few more questions for you.
okay.
Regarding the medical history of Diego in February that does say he's friendly, do you have any knowledge on how the behavior is determined for the medical records?
Upon intake, we're required to say if the dog was fractious, if it allowed us to do the intake. Friendly and affiliative means that it was pretty much affiliated with humans and didn't cause any issues on the intake.
Okay. And as you're aware of, has Diego or Vera had any history of fighting people?
No,
But Diego and Vera have the history of fighting other animals.
yes,
And no other animals were present when this intake was done, correct?
no.
And going back to March with COVID and everything, the timeline of how all this happened, do you recall what day your department closed for in-person service?
No, I can't recall that exact day.
That's okay. If Ms. Jones was not able to come in person to submit her appeal, was there any other way she could have done it?
Yeah, yeah.
What are the,
Communication. When I communicated with her on the March date of the determination, she informed me that she was in California. I told her that the delivery would still go even with that. Just wanted to let her know that it was coming. So if she had any concerns, she had my contact number.
so she had your phone number. She could contact you.
Yes.
And that would be no personal interaction. It'd be over the phone.
No, I was the lead investigator on the case. I would be the contact person.
Okay. And if she would have called you to appeal this decision, would you have honored her appeal via the phone?
Of course.
And was there any, could she have mailed back her appeal? Was there any other way that she could have done it?
Yes, she could have. I inquired when she told me she was out of town, is there anyone at the location that could relay it to her? And she replied, yes.
What do you mean that could relay it to her?
That could somehow relay from the Normandy address to wherever she is, the information that I was dropping off at the address.
Oh, that was posted on the Normandy address's door. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, is there anyone who could receive it and make sure she could get it and look it over? And she replied, yes.
Okay. And do you know, is your department still closed for in-person walk-ins?
There are some exceptions. How the rules are exactly written. I'm not sure, but people are retrieving their license. They are getting dogs out of impound. They are, retrieving lost dogs. We do have a process, but yeah, mostly there's still COVID procedures.
Okay. Do you know when people were allowed in the building? When that started?
I'm not certain of the date, no.
Okay.
I have a question. People still have access to the animal control during COVID-19?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Your Honor.
And are you aware that 36th District Court was also closed for COVID for a period?
Yes.
Do you know what that period was?
No, not exactly. I couldn't recall the date. I remember it did change things, but I can't recall the exact date of when it affected me, but I remember it affecting me regarding writing citations. But I shortly found out that I could still write citations. I just had to use the Dropbox.
Okay. Do you know if why this order to euthanize the dogs was not put in front of a district court judge due to the court's closure? Do you know if that factored in?
I would imagine so, but whether I indulged in that factually, I can't say.
Okay. And do you know, per the ordinance, if there is a time period that animal control has to ask for an order from a 36th district judge?
No, I'm not aware of the duration with that interaction.
Okay.
Maybe animal control, the director knows. He's still gonna testify. We got about 11 minutes. Yeah, check.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, very briefly, I'm sorry, back to the tethers. So are you allowed to use any sort of tether in the city of Detroit on your dog?
Yes, wire-coated tether.
Okay, and why can't you use a chain tether?
Chains are illegal.
Oh, okay.
We can answer that question. Let's keep it within the scope of cross. I think we've established an investigation on this issue. I do want to move forward and finish today. I don't want to bring this tomorrow. I think that investigative clerk would do so.
I agree. Thank you, investigator. Nothing further.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, you want Mr. Tongue?
Yeah, and I just need him for the boarding, so it's be quick. Yeah, to get this out.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Tongue, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're going to get right to it. I'm going to swear you in so we can get to your testimony, okay? You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. You may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you please state your name for the record?
Mark Thomas Kumpf.
Okay, and what is your position?
I am the Director of Detroit Animal Care.
Okay, and are you familiar with how the cost for boarding an animal at Animal Care and Control is determined?
Yes, I am.
And how is it determined?
We have lump sum agreements as well as a cost per day based on how many days the animal is held at our facility, either for quarantine or for regular boarding.
Okay, how is the cost per day determined?
We calculate it based on an average $10 per day per animal for housing for the length of stay.
Okay, and referring to the animals in question here, Diego and Vera, do you know how long they've been held for?
They have been here, I believe, since February 16th of 2020.
Okay, and are they still presently in your facility?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and how did you determine the boarding cost as of today for both of those animals?
Basically by adding the dates up on the calendar and multiplying that by 2 to determine the total number of days, and then multiplying it by 10 to reach a dollar figure.
Okay, so would you say the total dollar amount for boarding is $4,660 as of today for both animals?
I believe that would be accurate, yes.
Okay. I don't believe I have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, just a few questions along those lines. Is there any internal policy on when you're supposed to file to destroy a dog based on a dangerous animal investigation?
Is there any internal policy?
Correct.
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. There's no internal policy that says when.
Okay. As the investigator, as the director, notice was served, I believe it was March 3rd of 2020. A person gets 10 days to file a document to contest that. That'll put us at March 13th, 2020. Is there any reason that your department didn't file to destroy these animals in a timely period thereafter? In like
Yes.
8?
Yes, sir. Courts were closed. We notified the city attorney of the filing necessity. We contacted the city attorney with the designation and the request for the destruction order. We followed up with the city attorney to ensure that no appeal had been filed, and then requested that they follow through with the action. And unfortunately, courts have been closed until they recently reopened. Again, we've requested that action, but it has been, the city attorney's office has not filed that until now, when we pressured for an emergency order based on the longevity of this particular case.
Okay, and fair enough. So basically it was an inability to access the courts and actually the process and system which would cause the delay, right?
A portion of it, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Nothing further, Judge.
No further questions.
Okay, and I have one question, Mr. Tom. I'm not sure if you said in the very beginning, I know it's $10 a day to board an animal. Does it say in writing, or do you have any policy as to who is supposed to pay for that $10?
I believe in the city code, it states that the owner is responsible for that fee. It's a mechanical charge. For example, if your car is impounded by the police department and it's towed, you go to the impound lot, they charge you a fee to house the car for the day. That's the same thing as our boarding charges, our quarantine charges would be. It covers the daily feeding, watering, medical care for an animal during its stay here at the Detroit Animal Shelter.
Okay, any questions based off of that, off of my question?
Nothing further.
Nothing, Judge.
Okay, you are all done. That was it was nice and quick. Thank you for your time and waiting for that 5-minute questioning. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Appreciate it. No worries.
You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay. Have you moved?
No, that's be slow over.
And Mr. Combs, if you'd like to stay on, you can stay on and watch. You don't have to log off.
Yes, ma'am. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Attorney Rogers, you said no.
No, yes, no
Okay.
further witnesses around.
And what about?
Judge, given that there's a criminal allegation still pending against Ms. Jones, I've advised her not to testify in today's hearing because we will probably have yet another upcoming trial based on the criminal allegations. And it is my best legal advice for her not to testify at this time. Are you okay with that, Mrs. Jones?
Yes and no, but I guess if that's what's best.
Well, let me just say, you have the right to testify if you want to, but I, as your lawyer, would advise against it, as we talked about, for the reasons we talked about last night on the phone, giving the pending, 7 or 8 counts we still have to deal with at trial.
Okay.
Okay? All right, Judge, we'd rest.
Whenever you're ready.
report for an order to euthanize both Diego and Vera as dangerous dogs because of all the testimony that this court has heard today. Testimony from numerous neighbors, from investigator Clark, about this, both of these dogs, very vicious behavior of killing 2 neighboring dogs, small dogs, over the course of about a month. This behavior is very, very dangerous to public safety and to other dogs. These dogs have shown overdoing the same exact behavior twice, that they can't be rehabilitated and that they are a danger to society. Further, it is inhumane to keep Diego still at animal control due to his diagnosis of bone cancer, which he is in pain and cannot be treated. Further, Vera has demonstrated further aggressive behavior while she's been held at animal control. And people are also asking for an order of $4,660 for boarding costs because the animals have been held since February until today. Due to all of the testimony that this court heard today, we ask for an order to euthanize and for boarding costs. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the bench?
And Judge, I have actually a 2-part argument that I kind of warned the court about prior. The first being illegal, the second
And
being.
also, you don't have to rush.
Okay.
Take your time.
For-
I know I said 4:30, but
Oh, no.
I'm not gonna stop you on the good of your argument.
The first being legal, second being more factual based on the case. Judge, I think that this court has to look to the ordinance for exactly what the people are requesting. The ordinance provides, I think the ordinance is completely inadequate. The Detroit City Council really needs to revisit this. And the reason being is they don't show any relief within the ordinance. The ordinance states that the Department of Animal Control can petition the court to destroy an animal, try to obtain an order, but there's no authority based on that ordinance that gives this court any authority to have the animals destroyed. Now, I understand there may be other things out there, but it's not under the city code. This case has been brought by the city of Detroit themselves, and they brought it under their own ordinance. Nobody brought this under a state statute or any other rule or case. And I think that as a threshold issue, the ordinance itself is completely inadequate. It does not even grant Your Honor the authority to order that these dogs be destroyed. It merely gives the department to make a determination. The city council dropped the ball on this one. They did not put in any relief. They did not give the court any direction. Are we looking at, is this technically civil? Is it more criminal? They don't define that. The city council also did not define exactly what the burden of proof may be. They don't define exactly the relief sought. And I believe this ordinance itself, especially the section with respect to relief, is wholly inadequate. It's vague. And as we know in this state and country, if there's a vague ordinance, then it cannot be enforced, and we cannot guess at what the city and council intended. I did a brief before this very court, just before COVID, regarding this issue, and it's the 2019 case, Home Builders Association versus the City of Troy, which basically states, look, these statutes have to be interpreted, given the words their plain meaning, and the judge in this court should not second guess and legislate for the legislature. In this case, the legislature is the Detroit City Council, and they have failed. Thus, Judge, I think as the first legal threshold matter in this case, this court doesn't have the authority. I think this part of the action should be dismissed based upon that alone. If this court was to find that there was sufficient authority, we would ask that you would, on a factual basis, deny the city's request. I think the testimony has showed that the dog, Vera, appeared to be more of the aggressor. The other dog, Diego, seemed to be more the follower. Yes, Diego has bone cancer per their records, but at the same time, that's not a reason under the ordinance to euthanize Diego. So I think that this court needs to make, if you reach the fact question, this court needs to make a determination based on each dog separately. The testimony from several of the witnesses was that Vera was the attacking dog. At the one point, they only saw the one dog, which was Vera, attacking the other dog. So, and I know Diego, at one point, one of the witnesses testified that Diego did join in, but it was back, I believe it was, after Vera dragged the dog back to their yard, that's when this kind of tug of war gruesome scene occurred. I don't dismiss the dog's suffering. I don't dismiss the owner's suffering in this case. And so I just don't want to sound like I'm being insensitive. But I think the court needs to make a determination as to both. Also, as the fact question, People's Own Exhibit 2, the dogs were friendly and cooperative. Completely friendly and cooperative. And I think that in and of itself, goes to show it kind of doubts some of the assertion that they're inherently dangerous. Also, this court's been made aware through court documents as well as the testimony early in this case that my client has moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which is where she's currently located. And I think releasing the dogs to her would not pose any threat to the people of the city of Detroit, which is what the Detroit ordinances are aimed at protecting. So I think she should be able to come up, get her dog immediately upon release, take them to Georgia, and handle her dogs in that regard, and get medical care for the bone cancer, for Diago's bone cancer. You did hear testimony that she did try to contain her dogs with a chain. And she was advised by animal control, look, it violates the new ordinance. You can't have your dog on a chain anymore. And the witnesses, I think 2 of them we talked to, have agreed, and they testified, when dogs were on a chain, the dogs didn't get out. So I just want to point out to the court that Ms. Jones was trying to do everything she could. Now, I know that doesn't probably bear on the ultimate question of are the dogs dangerous and what the outcome should be. So, but I do want to just put on the record that she was trying everything that she could. She's willing to take her dogs, come up here and get them home by Friday, I think, was the discussions we had. With respect to the ordering of fees, Judge, I mean, look, I don't fault the city. They obviously couldn't file things in a timely manner. COVID has rocked everybody's world. Everybody's world. Some people have moved out of state because of COVID. Case in point, what we're dealing with today. So I think that the order, and I believe the ordinance states, and I'd have to find it, the ordinance states the court may order that. They don't, it's not shall, they don't have to. I think given equitable principles in this case, she filed her appeal in July. We're in October. She's just now getting her hearing. And of course, that's through no fault of the court, the city, or my client, but I just don't want her penalized $10 a day times 2 times so many days when this hearing hopefully could have been handled prior. Again, no fault of anybody. I'll blame COVID. COVID-19 is definitely the bad guy here. I think we can all agree on that. So for those reasons, Judge, I would ask that you make a separate determination as to each dog in this case. And I would also ask that you actually deny this factually. That's, of course, if this court gets beyond the legal issue. And, Judge, I will point out, if you want actual briefing on the legal issue, I'd be more than happy to do that.
I know you would be.
Thank you.
Anything from people?
Yes. First, to go to counsel's point of the legal question of this ordinance is grossly inappropriate to talk about right now, as that should be its own written motion. Defense counsel is essentially trying to ambush by motion practice and bootstrapping this onto my motion and saying that our whole ordinance is vague and not enforceable. That's its own motion that, as defense counsel has offered, needs to be briefed and dealt with separately. That is not in front of the court today. In front of the court today is to determine if an order to euthanize these dogs and boarding costs should be granted to the people. But briefly going on, if this ordinance is overly vague or anything, it is not. It clearly says the process of what should happen. And this court heard testimony about the safe checks of how this process works. That first you have the investigator that makes the recommendation, and then the director approves it. And then once the director approves it, then the dogs are dangerous, but still are not euthanized. It has to go in front of 36th District Court Judge, you, Judge Sabree, to determine if these dogs are dangerous and should be euthanized. And that is exactly what's happening here. It's very clear in the ordinance. It is not overly vague at all. It's very clear. In looking at previous case history, an ordinance is deemed to be constitutional and valid on its face, unless the challenger can prove it is not. And essentially, the challenger here has not proven that it is overly vague. They just kind of said they don't really like it. And moving to the factual evidence that was put on today, these dogs, of course, the determination for an order to euthanize these dogs should be done separately, but it should come to the same conclusion. It is understood that the first biting incident was mostly Vera, but the second biting incident, which led to death of a dog, was both dogs together. They were working in a tag team. They pulled the dog apart. It was very gruesome what happened, and both dogs did this. And that further goes to why both dogs should be euthanized because of their actions. And going to the point of Diego being sick, that does not fall under a dangerous dog determination, but animal control does have a duty of due care that they have to give all animals in their control, and they cannot give him the proper care because he is so sick, which further adds to why he should be euthanized. And going to the defense point that now the defendant is living in Atlanta, not Detroit, we don't actually know that she says that. And she says that she will move the dogs to Atlanta, but we don't know that will happen. And we don't know that if these dogs get out of animal control, that they will not cause havoc again on the people of Detroit, and specifically the people that testified today. Because of all of these reasons, people are asking for an order to euthanize and for boarding costs. Thank you.
Judge, not factually, I know she gets the final word on that, the legal issue. On the legal issue, I just want to point out, I know we get heated in argument, but I was not appointed to this case until actually Saturday, Judge, is when I officially got the notification. I officially got the file Monday afternoon. The prosecutor did send it to me. And of course, I couldn't get a hold of my client until literally last night around 7 p.m., where that was our first discussion regarding the in-depth issues of the case. This was an emergency motion. The people have their right to a due fair hearing. I didn't want to uphold that by filing a separate motion to delay everything. I'm just saying now that the issue is raised, there is a legal issue still before the court. It's a little more than I don't like it. My personal thoughts aside on the ordinance, it's that it is overly vague, and that if the court does want, I would be more than happy to brief that. I know that would take time, but of course we would need witnesses for that, and you could rule based on the briefs themselves if you chose. But I just want to make that record clear.
Okay, having heard arguments from both parties, I have come to a decision. A lot of testimony, a long day, so we have 4 dogs, Jacob, Lucky, who are both deceased now. And we have Vera and Diego. From my understanding, Vera is what people describe as black dog, Diego as a tan dog. There's testimony that Vera was the initial aggressor in both incidents when Jacob and Lucky were both killed, but also that Diego did play a part at some point in the death of both dogs. I heard testimony we all heard from Mr. Davis, who watched his dog torn into pieces with the help of Diego. In the next few weeks, also watched Lucky be killed, and watched in the same manner and hear bones cracking, and heard from other witnesses and several witnesses that the dogs are always out without their leash, putting neighbors into fear on the porch, grass, backyard. There was a video shown of the dogs being out on other people's property and hounding their side door to the point where the witnesses could not go into their house or get out of the car. And as Ms. McCool stated, she didn't feel safe until the dogs were taken away by animal control. There were several testimonies that dogs barked well into the night and disturbed the community. There's also testimony that the defendant, Yanni Jones, is the owner of both dogs. On February 16, 2020, after the second dog, Lucky, was killed, the dog was deemed dangerous by animal control, and citing the ordinance that Attorney Whitey does not like whatsoever, states, I won't read it all, but it's a dangerous animal investigation ordinance. And just the title says determination by the administrator or the administrator's designee, the appeal of dangerous animal determination, the treatment of animals issued dangerous animal determination, the treatment of animals seized or or surrendered prior to dangerous animal determination. So this ordinance, section 63-1, is supposed to guide the court as well as the animal control division as to how to take care of incidents when there's a dangerous animal investigation. Move to section D, which is a little more pertinent. It says, upon a dangerous animal determination, the Animal Care and Control Division shall provide the owner of the animal a written notification of the determination by first-class mail. Within 10 days from the date of the receipt of the mailing, the owner of the animal may file a written request for a hearing to review the determination at the 36th District Court. Pending any hearing or resolution on the dangerous animal determination, the animal shall be confined in accordance with the requirements imposed by the administrator or the administrator's designee pursuant to section 3(2) of this code, including confinement in a securely fenced or enclosed area. Where the owner fails to request a hearing within the 10-day period after receipt of notice, the dangerous animal determination made by the administrator or the administrator's designee shall become final, and the animal shall be issued a dangerous animal determination under this section. Attorney White, I will agree with you that I do not believe that this ordinance was written as well as it could have been written, and I don't think 36 district, or we were contemplated when city council wrote this ordinance. However, reading this, I don't think it's too vague to understand that after a dog is deemed dangerous by Animal Care and Control Division, that the owner of the dog has 10 days to respond. And I understand that during COVID-19, there's some issues with being able to have access to the court. There was testimony from Investigator Clark that there was still access to animal control and they were still operating. I don't believe there was any contact made prior to July 6th from the defendant, Ms. Jones, regarding her dogs.
Yes, I did.
Ms. Jones, I'm in the middle of making a decision. I need you to be quiet. So I know that, as you stated, Attorney White, that the ordinance has its issues. It's my job to follow along with what is put before me. It says the 36th District Court has the authority to issue an order based on a dangerous animal determination. And I know you also stated, Attorney White, that the dogs were cooperative and friendly. It does not, however, negate the killing of 2 dogs and the terror that has occurred in the neighborhood. And if Ms. Jones is living in Georgia or Atlanta, it is not in my best interest or anyone's interest to make this the issue of Atlanta, Georgia as well. Because everyone's lives will be affected by it based off the behavior of the dog and the testimony that I received. So based on that, and I would also reserve my decision for the fines and costs for pretrial date on October 21st. I'm not gonna make that decision today on the fines because I'm not been provided with the ordinance regarding whether or not it's required or any type of writing that says that the owner is required to pay the $10 today. But based off of testimony and the evidence received today, I am going to grant the people's motion to have both dogs euthanized as they are deemed dangerous and harmful to the community. So I will put that in writing and move forward with the hearing on October 21st. Anything from either party?
No, thank you, Judge. Regarding the boarding fees, are we re-arguing that on the 21st,
No.
or do you need documentation?
No re-arguing anything. If you have the ordinance, or if there's something in writing that says that that's required by law, I would like to have that. Otherwise, I'm gonna make a determination based off of the arguments made today.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
And Attorney Whitey, I understand your argument about COVID-19 and the payments and not having access to the court, and I will take that into consideration to the date of your license.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for making this a very lively day.
And Judge, I did write up a proposed order. you want to review it, I just have to find it. But that's it.
Okay, so for everybody on Zoom, thank you all for your patience.
Judge,
Yeah.
before my client leaves, just for the pretrial on October 21st, with respect to that, I know you have a full docket that day. Is there a chance we can make our appearance like at 9:30 so you can get through the docket prior to, because there may be there may be more argument, potentially, there may be a resolution.
I'm going to say this, based off of what my order is today, there should be a very, very quick resolution to these cases that she has pending. I think that the dogs will no longer be an issue. I don't think you want to call in later, whatever time works for you.
No, I mean, the 9 AM thing is great, that's not a problem. I just wanted to just point that out
Okay,
for your time and kind of traffic control.
thanks. So,
Thank you, Judge.
when you call in Attorney Whiting, I'll take care of you, wherever we are in the record.
Oh, yeah, no.
And just to be clear, Investigator Clark, it's a pre-trial, I do not need you present for that.
Okay, so today, 4:48, we are concluding the docket for Portland 332.
Ms. Jones, I'll be in touch, okay? I'll be calling
Is
you
my
before-
dog's getting euthanized?
I'm sorry?
So my dog's getting euthanized?
Yeah, that was the order of the judge, or the court. But humanely, so no more suffering with or with bone cancer and things like that. It's humane, they're not rough.
So
Okay?
oh my God.
Ms. Jones, I would advise you to call Attorney Whiting privately to have a conversation with him about, because you still have pending matters.
That's fine, but if I would have known you was gonna make the decision, I would have said what I wanted to say.
Okay, we're gonna talk, okay? Before the pre-trial. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Thank you all.